2020, God exposed America with a bunch of viral particles, a plague. God flicked and we buckled. Our political leaders shut down their states in fear. Our pastors abdicated the church as non-essential, and we have been scattered by petty, tyrannical resolutions and edicts into our homes or hiding our shame with masks. Businesses have been shut down by arbitrary non-essential labels. Strip clubs, pot shops, and abortion facilities remained open, while churches were threatened, regulated, and fined. First Amendment rights were trampled on as we Christians were arrested by despotic, unprincipled local governments. Citizens were harassed by unelected health districts, and communities were threatened in their houses by cops. This sounds like a third world country, a bad dream, but it is not. It is the new America. This America is ruled by fear. This America is ruled by opportunistic politicians who don't give a damn about you. This America breeds a compliant citizenry that cares more about their strip clubs and DoorDash deliveries, that cares more about their safety and their comforts than the truth that Jesus is King of Kings and that our freedoms are protected by the Constitution. This America is worse than King George III's America. It's time to take a stand, but to stand requires courage, and courage requires repentance. What we need is reformation and revival in our churches, in our families, in our communities, in our businesses, and in our government. Every square inch needs the blood of Jesus. We need to seize this moment where all our sins, fears, and failures have been exposed by God through this plague and gather to sing psalms, to feast, and to get strengthened, to be encouraged, and equipped to lead America back to Jesus, who is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Governor after governor instituted some sort of shutdown, ignoring your constitutional rights. There was one governor, one state, that did not buckle and join the crowd of governors driven by fear. Governor Christine Noem has stood strong through this pandemic. And so we are bringing our first annual Fight, Laugh, Feast rally to Rapid City, South Dakota, April 29th through May 1st. Join us in the land of the free and the home of the brave as we learn to love God, sing psalms, and defy tyrants. Heavy music for heavy show.
Yeah. Ain't heavy if you got your Bible, though.
That's right. Hey, y'all, welcome to Cross Politics. Midweek Fix. Pastor Toby Chalk Knox. I'm the Water Boy. It's good to be with you guys. Make sure you share the show. We're live right now. I'll be monitoring the YouTube chat room. David always monitors the Facebook chat room on Wednesdays.
No, I don't.
We don't. We say we do.
And I monitor everybody
all the cameras
in the studio.
All the cameras.
And the cameras. I just look at them all randomly. And Neil chases me.
It's pretty much to that point. If you haven't bought a ticket at the conference, which you still can, the best way,
you can
if you
register,
can't make it,
you can register at the door.
Yeah, you can register at the door. But the best way, if you can't make it, is join the club. $10 and up, bronze and up. And everybody who's a club member, bronze and up, gets access to the live
we're going to be live
streaming the conference. Yeah.
And there'll be archives too. So even if you can't catch them live, you can catch them the next day, next week.
That's right.
Then you'll know what everybody's talking about when they're like, "You remember when Indy said that?"
Yep.
And you're like, no, I wasn't there. I live in Australia.
Well, you need to be a club member.
Yeah, or maybe you're a Canadian and they won't let you out
to our conference. Yeah. So there you go. We're really excited about the conference. Obviously, we're kicking the conference off with beer and psalms on Thursday night. We're ending it with comedian John Brandian and Sabbath dinner on Saturday night. It's just going to be a good old time.
I love these times.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're actually going to be out there a little early for Warriors in the Garden with Nate and those guys. We got a whole group of guys going to like a ranch outside of Rapid City
to shoot guns.
So
and don't forget,
guys, this is a hard life.
And apparently Nate's like getting all armor ranger guyish on us, and he's going to want us to wake up in the morning and work out.
What?
Who works? I'm gonna work out my feet into them shoes and go grab a gun. That's what I want to work out.
As long as there's coffee involved, I might roll with it. Hey, this show is brought to you by One Hat Technologies. Are you thinking about building a new mobile app? I mean, why wouldn't you? Does your business need a simpler digital workflow? Are there gaps in your software where it just doesn't do everything you want it to?
We need all those things.
Let One Hat make your life easier with custom software built just for your needs. One Hat Technologies excels at creating beautiful, easy-to-use, and powerful business software. Their motto is software craftsmanship to the glory of God.
Love that.
They've been in business for 18 years and are striving to live out the lordship of Jesus Christ in the technology world.
Yes, sir.
So take the headache out of your day-to-day business processes with custom software or a website or mobile app. Visit onehat.com/crosspolitic today. That's onehat.com/crosspolitic. Lastly, One Hat is starting a network of Christian developers.
That's right.
So if you're a developer, check it out on their website. Connect with them.
That's good. That's good. So as you guys know, Officer Chauvin was convicted of 3 counts.
3 counts.
He was convicted of second degree, third degree, and manslaughter.
Second degree murder, third degree murder.
And we'll go through each of these categories in a little bit in the show. But the reason I think why we wanted to just dedicate the whole show today to Officer Chauvin and what happened and his conviction and everything is because as Christians, we really need to think biblically about these things.
Yeah.
You had beforehand, how many people wanted his guilty verdict?
Right.
Right.
A lot of people wanted his guilty verdict.
We know how many.
Well, actually, I don't remember hearing anybody saying the man was innocent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. Until he's been proven that he's been guilty. I don't.
How many
remember
people
anybody
said we've
that.
seen the video?
Yeah. Right.
And therefore, he's guilty.
Right.
Like no, so.
And he's and actually after seeing the video, you have to say in some sense, looking at that without the trial completely, okay,
that looks bad.
That looks bad.
I don't mind that. I don't mind
all the facts.
Not at all.
And
but could my point in all this is, can you be a impartial juror even after seeing that video, and you go into the courtroom? Could you go into the courtroom saying, I'm ready to hear the evidence?
Right. Yeah. I think I want to.
I can still, in this moment, with what I've seen, I can still say, well, he's not guilty or he's guilty.
I think
that's part of the jury selection process, right? I mean, both attorneys would have some say in which jurors are serving.
If I had to be if you were on the jury and they said, "Hey, Pastor, look, you've seen the video, correct?"
I have.
Okay, can you judge impartially that Chauvin is either innocent or guilty without the video influencing your thoughts?
I don't know if I could say it would have no influence, but of course the video is going to be shown during the trial.
Yeah.
So in which case it's going to be part of the content.
Right.
But yes, by the grace of God, I would hope that I would actually be able to be open to hearing all the facts.
Yeah.
And I think knowing the different charges, what do they mean?
Yeah.
And then trying to recognize what happened and trying to figure out what fits in. I wouldn't know that ahead of time. I don't know Minnesota law. I don't know that AOC knows Minnesota law.
I know she doesn't.
I know Maxine Waters knows Minnesota law.
Well, she don't know much either.
And that's part of you do not know until you've had all the facts presented and you have been and the Minnesota law has been clearly explained.
Yeah. That's right. If I was going to be absolutely honest about that and they asked me, it's like, look, I saw the video. This doesn't feel or look right to me by default. Mm-hmm. So there is some prejudice there, but I'm willing to give him an absolute chance to prove his innocence in this.
Well,
although
nobody watches that and thinks, nothing bad happened.
Right. Something.
I mean, an image bearer died.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, and you can.
And he was. And 3 of them, not just him. 3 people were a part of this process.
Yeah, and so when you go into the process, you don't. It's not like you're pretending to be a computer.
Right.
It's just the question is do you recognize that justice means presumption of innocence? Justice means due process. That's right. Justice means 2 or 3 independent witnesses establishing every fact.
Yeah.
If you understand all that, you can still say, like that was horrible.
Well, yeah.
And it sure looked bad.
Could you do it like if your son throws a ball and breaks a window? You know he's guilty of something. Right.
Well, right. Some damage has been done.
How did it happen?
But, what is the story that leads up to this?
And you might think, or maybe you even have less information than that. You see, your son's out in the backyard playing a baseball, and all you see out of the corner of your eye is a ball hits the window and shatters.
Yeah.
And so you think, he hit the window.
Right.
But you got to go find out the facts. You said, this looks bad. Looks like I'm going to pay for a window.
Right. Or he is.
He's going to help me.
Yeah.
But you got to find out, what happened. Did you hit the ball? Did you throw it to your friend and he hit the ball?
Right.
Were you throwing it over the roof and you didn't see what was on the other side? Right. There's all kinds of information that you got to find.
And that's like all these people who made prejudgments, like Maxine Waters, before there was a guilty verdict.
Right. Yeah, there must be guilty.
He must be guilty. He has to be guilty. And if he's not, they're saying we need to escalate violence in the streets, is what she said.
Yes, you need to take it to them. It needs to be more confrontational.
Well, she even went so far to say first degree.
Yeah, that's right.
She said it has to be first degree.
That's what she said in the video. And these kind of people that are leading us are in no condition to be leading us.
Absolutely not.
Like they don't care about justice.
Right.
They weren't sitting there in the courtroom weighing sides. They weren't waiting for a supposedly impartial juror
and that's where I disagree
to bring
with you,
guilty
Gabe.
or not guilty.
I disagree with you. I think that they represent us rightly. I think they represent us rightly.
Yeah.
No, because what is driving them is just visceral, emotional reaction.
That's right.
That's right.
Not judicious, thoughtful, careful process.
And look at us.
And so you're right. I mean, and the Christian church discipled this nation.
Right. Well,
right. We gave them worship songs for 50 years that was just entirely designed to give people orgasms.
Emotions.
Emotion.
Yeah.
Just
That's
feed
exactly
emotion,
right.
emotion.
Yeah.
Being a Christian is just Jesus and an emotional experience.
Yep.
and so when something happens, what happens? Everybody goes
It's
up
all
and has
about
an emotion.
emotions. We've been discipling them to worship their emotions, not God, not the living God, not to use their minds.
That actually walks out itself in life. So now when something happens and goes on, you don't be thoughtful. You don't step back and say, okay, let's look at this objectively. You just react.
And what you have is, what this is scapegoating.
Yeah.
Now, and this is really regardless of the
I got a video for this.
the exact conviction. So we need to look at Minnesota law, and I want to hear some of the more details. I wasn't following the case really closely.
Yeah.
But regardless, the whole nation screamed, "We must have Chauvin's blood.
Yeah.
We must have a conviction. We must have guilty."
That's right.
In the name of racial injustice.
Well, and it's not Chauvin's.
And in the name of animosity and enmity and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
They want Chauvin to be a Jesus.
Well, they're not trying just that case for that case either.
No.
Right? That's what you're saying.
It's for all the cases.
It's for all the cases.
But that's unjust.
Exactly. That is not justice.
You can't allow this one situation to represent
all the
others. Only Jesus can represent all the others. That's what they're doing. They want it to be a Jesus.
And Nancy Pelosi is actually a good example of this.
So again, thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice.
What?
For being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that? Call out for your mom. I can't breathe. But because of you, and because of thousands, millions of people around the world who came out for justice, your name will always be synonymous with justice.
That's exactly what you're talking
George, about. So what they're doing is they're actually conflating this. They've got George Floyd dying for them.
Yeah.
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 George Floyd dying for them. Thank you for crying out to your mother that you can't breathe.
Yeah. So
do you see this?
Yeah.
I mean, a savior is inescapable.
Yeah.
A gospel is inescapable. And she's saying, thank you, George Floyd. Did you guys ask George Floyd into your heart?
If you didn't, guess what? We'll tear up your city.
Yeah. But what they're doing is they're also conflating this because they've got to have a guilty verdict.
Right.
At the same time of Chauvin, where this animosity can land. That's what I mean by scapegoat.
Right.
All the animosity for the death of George Floyd's got to land on him. And
if you don't, there will be judgment.
And that's what
Waters
said. It said there's going to be judgment. There's going to be explosion. But the thing is this isn't justice,
right?
And it's not going to satisfy anybody.
I want to step back for a second and just take an objective look. Let's just talk about government for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
Government cannot be authoritative if it doesn't have any real power. Okay. So in order for the government to operate, they really do have to have the sword to put someone to death, right?
Okay.
Yep.
And so no one gets to push them around on that subject. They are the authoritative one. When they say this person needs to die, because they get that's authority. God has given that to them. And so authority flows to them to make those decisions. What I'm seeing now and what I've been watching is that a group of people or a sect have actually been taking the authority so that if they don't get what they want, everybody knows there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that had this verdict come differently, or they would have
Black Lives Matter would have rioted.
It wasn't just
Nike stores would be looted.
Well, they're still been looted right now anyway. So it's,
Portland still had a
they're still going through it.
Night,
so then I want to ask you, where's the real power actually at?
Yeah, in the mob.
It's in the mob.
Right.
The power is not in the authority of the government. The power is in the mob.
Right.
And if the mob doesn't get what they want, everybody is bending to them.
Right.
And so what we already have is a tilting. Remember we were talking this past Sunday with Tom and Jared.
Yeah.
And what we talked about then, and I even said this offline, listen, there is going to be a reformation of how law is done in America.
Yeah.
Regardless if we like it or not.
It's happening.
It's happening. Yeah. And I've watched it. I mean, just watching, everybody was like, look at them. Everybody, they even said this on 38th in Chicago. Look at this. We got what we wanted. And look, ain't nobody rioting or mobbing or doing anything like that. It's like, wait a second. If we're concerned about real, true justice, then you shouldn't want to be rioting and tearing things up either, because you're destroying somebody else's property. And so if you can't see that the power structures right now have completely flipped.
Right. But what happens,
go ahead.
Finish your thought.
Well, my thought in that they're changing. If you don't have something to be able to fill that gap with, you're only offering what we've already had.
Right. And part of the issue, though, is so you're right. God gives the sword to the magistrate. That's where the authority is supposed to be. That's where the power is supposed to be, so long as it's used to actually do justice.
That's right.
But what has happened is we are straying from biblical standards. Now,
that's right. No, that's right.
As it happens,
but there's still ways to go about doing that biblically.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I said this on the Sunday show as well. But I mean, as it happens, I still prefer our old system for all of its warts and problems.
Yeah.
Needing
this new revolutionary system that's going out.
What I want is, and this goes back in the day, people have frequently confused the French Revolution and the War for Independence.
Right.
The War for Independence was not a revolution.
Right.
It was not revolutionary. It was not mob violence. It didn't want to burn everything down. What the American colonists were insisting on is basically their old rights and charters.
Right.
Yeah.
We want the old system put back right. We don't want the British Parliament running it over.
Right.
We don't want you to take away the rights that you always said we had.
Right.
The French revolutionaries wanted to burn it to the ground.
And that's what we're seeing right now.
Your calendar and everything.
And so we can, exactly. And so we can say, absolutely, does our policing need reform?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it needs reform according to biblical law. It needs reform according to Western canon law. It needs reform according to transcendent standards.
That's right. That's right.
That come from the living God. And not this burn it all down stuff. And when you burn it all down, it's never good enough. You're never at the end of it.
So here's what AOC has to say about justice.
That this isn't justice.
Oh, yeah. We agree on that.
It's not justice. And I'll explain to you why it's not justice.
Please.
It's not justice because justice is George Floyd going home tonight to be with his family.
Hit pause.
He should have been arrested.
Justice.
Hit pause. If George Floyd gave a fake money at the house, counterfeit money at the place,
at the store,
she's missing the story. Justice would have been him actually paying back whatever it was that he got from the fake money, right, and then giving it to the person who actually he robbed or mistreated, stole from for the most part, and then him going about his business, and that would have been justice in that case. So him going home just like by default, that's not even the whole narrative.
But even this, like, I don't even know what she means exactly, but it's like, okay, in order for him to go home now, you would have to raise him from the dead,
right?
Like she.
But you know what she's meaning.
Well, I don't know. I actually don't know what she's meaning.
Meaning that he would have never actually had to get pulled over by the police.
I guess I was taking it to mean like we can't ever get justice,
or he got arrested and then they didn't kill him in the process.
I guess I
take it more Knox's way.
I guess I want to press her on it.
Well, it is AOC, so you could be right.
But because I mean, I'm thinking she's setting the. I mean, maybe that's all she means.
I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt.
I'm not.
I know. And you're probably
Adam Toledo getting tucked in by his mom tonight.
Hit pause.
Ooh, can't get out of this video.
No, because you can't just let all this fly. This is how they do it. What they do
Adam
is
Toledo was in Chicago.
The kid, the 13-year-old kid who
was shooting.
I don't know all the situation before, but watching the video,
he had a gun.
He had a gun in his hand, was running down the alley, dropped the gun. The officer did not see in this time that he had not had the gun in his hand and shot him. Okay,
the kid dropped the gun. The kid turned around.
He got shot.
I want to say this is a logical. They're conflating the whole thing together. They're just flattening it all out.
Right.
All of it's the same.
Right.
Everything. It's not the same. Justice doesn't look and say, oh, it's just flattened out. No.
Right.
We take each case and we try each case according to the situations that are there.
Right.
And so what you're seeing, but believe it or not, is a form of federalism. She's already bringing in a form of federalism to the whole idea.
But it's a racialized federalism.
Yeah.
Because
all of it's bad.
No, but I know. But it's a false federalism. Yeah. But recognize, and by federalism we mean covenantalism.
Right. That's right.
Okay. It's the same word.
Yep.
A covenant in Latin, and it means that it's a legitimate way that people are united.
Yes.
By bonds.
That's right. An agreement. That's
family bonds, church bonds, national bonds. Yep. Those are legitimate ways that people are bonded together by covenant, by oaths, by stipulations, by promises, by blessings and curses. And those covenants always have representatives.
Yeah.
And this goes back to the scapegoating thing.
Yeah.
But what she's trying to do there is she's trying to pull it all together. She's creating a liberal, sort of progressive covenantalism.
Goulash. And
this is messed up.
Go ahead.
No, but it is. But it's like, it's taking all these situations and flattening them and smashing them together, and then saying this George Floyd incident can represent them all.
Yeah. And I want to say this too. This is, since she's going to bring this up and go there, I would have never said this had she not said this. But she talks about Adam Toledo, his mom, Justice is his mom, tucking him in bed. But had she tucked him in bed, there would be no 1:30 or
3 in the morning.
Shooting.
Exactly
so if you want to use that standard of justice,
where was his dad?
Where are the parents at that are allowing their 13-year-old child to run the streets
with a gun?
In this particular
at 2 in the morning.
And so, look, I can have the conversation about the officer's ability to follow his training to make a mistake or not. We can have that conversation.
Yeah.
But and there are some just things to say. He made a mistake. Okay, we'll try the case for what it is. But there is a responsibility of a parent to their child too. Is that not the case?
And we want all these absolutely. And the thing to hear what Knox is saying is justice takes these particularities into account because you don't want this done to you.
That's right.
You don't want to be prejudged ahead of time. That's not justice.
That's right.
Justice justice is blind. We've said this many times. You see the old statues, the old paintings. Justice is blindfolded. She doesn't know how tall you are, how rich you are, what color you are, whether you're male or female. It doesn't know those things. She just has a sword and she has the scales.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's so much safety in that kind of protection, which just says it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what color you are.
Yeah.
If Officer Chauvin was black, would we be having the same conversation?
I would.
No, I'm saying nationally. would we be having?
We should be having a similar conversation.
I think we
would.
I
don't think it could possibly be the same.
Would he get tried for first, second, third?
That's not the question. The question is the person who's the victim black? Because officers who are black are still getting some of the same heat.
Yeah.
But, because there's a black guy in this particular situation that was on top of Floyd. He's going to get tried too.
Yeah.
So I think it's really what we're looking at is an authority figure versus non-authority figure and how they're operating. I think that's at the end of it because the whole goal is to actually destroy authority, right? That's what they're ultimately after. And this, using black people, again, this is what makes me so mad. They're using us as a Trojan horse to be able to get in and under. That's why Nancy Pelosi is saying, thank you, George Floyd. Because we're getting used as a Trojan horse for them to pass their bill to nationalize the police.
That's what they want. So here's the question that I want to sort through is I want to know biblically what should have, if Chauvin's guilty, what verdict should he have gotten?
Manslaughter.
Oh wow, that was fast.
So he got unintentional second degree murder.
Yeah.
Then he got third degree murder.
Yeah.
Which is also unintentional.
Yeah.
But the reason why he got labeled or smacked with second degree murder is because apparently he was committing a felony by being on George Floyd's neck.
Yeah.
Right.
So they called that a felony to give him second degree unintentional, and then he got third degree unintentional, and then he got manslaughter.
Right.
So he got the book thrown out of him.
Right.
And
those are all three
like
charges that were brought.
Those are all three charges that are brought,
guilty
and he got guilty on all three.
Yeah.
And so here's the deal. Looking at that video and watching the case, as much as I couldn't watch it absolutely all the way through, but I watched most of the key points and some of the
So you're pretty
boring
comfortable
ones.
saying, I think guilty on manslaughter, but not guilty on
I think
the first two
it
charges?
was absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, gross negligence.
Yeah.
And here's the problem. I'm having a massive...
And so people know we've talked to a lot of cops about this. We've talked to lawyers about this.
Yes.
We've watched a lot of the trials.
And
So
I've talked to Gabe and Knox, and they've talked to a lot of people.
No, don't do telephone on this. Here's the deal. Everybody's pushing at Chauvin, but actually there were two other officers, and actually a third one that was even Officer Chin, who was standing in front of the audience, the crowd.
Yeah.
And so it was gross manslaughter on all of them.
Yeah, they're watching it happen.
Everybody.
So define for me why you think it was manslaughter for Chauvin.
So here's okay.
And not second or third degree
Well, because
murder.
inside of when they first charged Chauvin, they charged him with third degree and I believe manslaughter. They didn't feel like they can get second degree unless that they could prove the fact that he was acting extra outside
He
of
was breaking law. He's breaking a law.
outside of the training in which the police department has set him.
In other words, a felony.
He's acting outside of that way, he's using excessive force, then it's a felony, and then they can pull him to a felony charge where he can get murder charges.
And this is where they brought in was it the chief of police or the
Right.
his former supervisor of some sort?
Yeah, chief of police.
Who was willing to testify and say that the force that was being used was beyond
Excessive.
and excessive
Yep.
based on training in the police force.
The problem I have with this is that you all of a sudden get a murder without intent.
Yeah, so their categories,
right.
based off Minnesota
You get- categories,
you get murder without intent, which is not a biblical category.
Well, there are instances where you have people like the guy with the fence around his roof, and
Yeah.
Or the ox that gores.
The ox that
Yep.
gores. That's murder without intent.
Okay, so real quick,
I would call that though negligence and then gross negligence.
Okay.
So I would say that there you have negligence. You were just chopping wood, axe head flies off and kills someone,
Okay.
and then when it's examined, so that's
Deuteronomy 19 manslaughter.
But then there's also a point where if you go back and you examine someone is chopping wood and their axe head actually wasn't secured well, and they know that, and they weren't paying attention to it, or they had problems with it before, gross negligence. Okay, then so in this case, for them not to actually give some sort of help in the process after detaining him,
There's
to
some
me,
negligence there.
there's some negligence to that.
Yeah, right.
There's some negligence.
So I'm thinking of the ox goring passage. It seems interesting to all this. You have if an ox gores a man or a woman to death, the ox will be put to death.
Yeah.
But the owner of the ox will not be liable. So on the first time,
The first time an ox goes off,
the ox is put to death, and that's it. But if the ox has been accustomed to gore in the past, putting other people in danger,
Yeah.
and its owner has been warned, but has not kept it in, and it kills a man or woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner shall also be put to death.
Right.
And that kind of negligence,
Right.
Yeah.
that kind of gross negligence,
Knowing that your ox is killed before and you let him loose again.
right,
Yeah.
means that you are liable for the death penalty potentially.
Yeah.
Now it says this, verse 30, this is Exodus 21, verse 30, if a ransom is imposed on him, or like a fine, on the owner of the ox, then he shall give for the redemption of his life whatever is imposed on him.
Yeah.
So it
doesn't have to have the death penalty.
It gives the death penalty
But
as a
it's
maximum,
a maximum
sentence.
sentence.
It could be
Exactly.
put to death.
Exactly.
But then it says, but it's also possible to have a fine paid, and that fine could potentially be paid not only just in cash, but also in his own life. So we're told in other places in law that you could sell yourself into slavery to pay off that debt.
Yeah.
So you could do restitution.
And so that would be gross negligence, is what you're referring to.
Right,
that
right.
scenario.
So but I think though, so there is the reason I'm saying that, and I have to be careful a little bit with this, but there's been complaints about Chauvin before in his arresting process.
Okay, that's interesting.
And so I would want to examine those thoroughly to see
Yeah,
For
evidence
excessive-
and
for excessive
witnesses
force?
and all this stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
I would want to go through that and see, like, okay, is this a habit that tends to be his situation?
Has he been a goring ox?
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
my point.
yeah.
So, and this is like people are saying, well, his the process of what Chauvin did not, completely kill him. He died because of all the
Is stepping outside of the Chauvin case?
Yeah, that's what I want to do for a second.
Is the second degree charge? It's just a striking thing to me. My understanding of second degree murder has typically been sort of a heat of the moment killing. So you didn't premeditate it, you didn't plan it. That's first degree.
Yeah.
Second degree murder is typically. Correct me if I'm wrong, lawyers.
They will.
They will send me your emails at waterboy@fastpolitic.com. But typically it's in the heat of the moment. You get mad, and you pull out a gun and you shoot somebody.
Yeah.
You didn't mean you weren't planning it, but you did mean to kill him.
Yeah.
But in Minnesota law,
Yeah.
it has this clause specifically allowing for the second degree if it's in the process of another crime, felony being committed.
Yep.
And
it has two different clauses. So it has a subdivision 1 and subdivision 2.
so
and
maybe-
you're speaking to subdivision 2.
Okay, so subdivision 1 then is the one with the felony.
Yeah, they actually
clause.
have it said if somebody is
But
going.
I'm wondering if I don't know where that comes from, but I'm wondering if this ox goring principle is actually at work there, where you have this known negligence, sort of additional negligence. You're committing a crime. You're already doing something that's criminal, and then you kill someone in the process.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
don't think.
not-
I don't. Well, okay. This
I'm
is
not. I don't know about Chauvin, but
here's what I'm having a problem with. First of all, the way they load that, I think what I've been able to see the end of subdivision 2 and then third degree seem to match very closely. The only difference is the felony act inside of subdivision 2, which means to me that if you look at third degree, I think it's 20 years, 25 years, and then like $10,000 or some $20,000 or something like that. Inside of second degree, you have a 40-year max, and then $40,000 or something of the sort. And so I think the intent of second degree is to be able to get more penalty for the punishment so if they can, that's why they're trying to load. I think it's a loaded, and I don't know if it should be because what they're trying to prove. So let's say that
if you really have killed somebody, you really do need to be convicted of a murder. But there is a difference between planning it for weeks and months in advance.
Yeah. So if somebody's robbing a store and they're robbing a store at gunpoint, that automatically makes them a felon. That felony charge then moves from third degree if somebody gets killed to second degree, right? And so, but the intent wasn't to actually kill anybody there, right? Yeah. And that wasn't his intent.
I want to back up here because I think we need to be clear here. So they pull over George Floyd. George Floyd gets out of the car. They proceed to arrest George Floyd, and this goes over a span of minutes.
Yeah, he resists arrest.
And he resists arrest, and then they finally handcuff him, and then they start to put him in the car, and then he gets in the car, and then was able to push himself out on the other side of the cop car, out on the ground.
So we have some horrible policing.
And the cops don't do a good job detaining him in the back of the car. He pushes his way out. He's a big man. He's 6'4". He's
but
got
how
some
do
beef
you?
to him.
You can't open the back of the police vehicle.
I don't know why they open up the. Well,
how did he get out the other side? He climbed out the window
because they had to open up the other side to help pull him in because he wasn't.
And so he pushed his way all the way from one side between
side.
three guys to the other side.
That's right. And so he pushes himself out, and then he ends up on the ground. And Officer Chauvin, that's where his knee is on his back and on his neck.
Yeah. Why are you saying on his back first?
Well, because there was camera footage. There's camera
saw the
angle.
footage.
There's camera angles.
I saw the footage.
Right.
No, it was at the end of the video where he does
where
remove.
moves
Yeah,
his knee
of
a
course.
little bit.
Yeah.
So now we have this difficult situation where this guy who's on drugs at some level has to be restrained, pushes his way out of the car, ends up on the ground, and Officer Chauvin is restraining him with his knee on his neck. Mm-hmm. The distance between allowing to restrain George Floyd to George Floyd dying, that's where the debate is at. Mm-hmm. And so we're arguing that Officer Chauvin was able to restrain him, did restrain him, and then at some point should have brought some sort of care to George Floyd because it was obvious that he wasn't able to breathe and he was
not struggling,
and he was
not moving,
and so that's what we're saying. We're saying is Officer Chauvin should have brought some sort of relief to to George Floyd, excuse me, and he didn't, and that's why he gets some sort of manslaughter.
Well, are we saying we are saying this or the rest of them?
I'm saying we are saying this. This is what we're arguing.
Yeah, my
about
position.
Why he's guilty.
Is that where you would get your manslaughter verdict?
That's probably where. Yeah, I don't. I mean,
restraining him is one thing, but restraining him at some point became negligent.
Absolutely,
and negligent manslaughter because it took his life.
Right.
Right.
I don't. And
or
I don't.
At least contributed to taking his life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is why the fentanyl and all this other stuff is really. Yeah. I mean, so let's say that George Floyd actually made it to the back of the vehicle, and he started having an attack from the drugs that he had.
A heart attack or something.
Yeah.
Did you leave the man in the back of the vehicle shaking and having a heart attack?
Nope.
What if he's faking it? Like King David.
You don't have that luxury.
No.
You don't have that luxury.
No, they're charged. They're trained to.
Right.
You immediately call. You get medical attention.
And here's the deal. I know that area. I know that community. I know those people. That's home. Those police officers know it better than me.
Yeah.
They know someone when they're on drugs better than I do.
Right.
They knew at the moment that they encountered him that he was probably on some drugs.
Did Officer Chauvin testify?
He did not.
No.
He's wishing he probably would have now. You know, but so when they started handling him, they knew what they were dealing with. That wasn't a question. So when they
You're
had
sure
him,
they knew he was on drugs?
you cannot.
I mean,
I'm guessing.
if you work
right.
with druggies,
Yeah, I'm guessing you're right.
if you work with guys who are on drugs,
This guy's loaded. This guy's loaded.
You know he's acted some type of way. That's the first thing I knew just from watching the videotape.
Okay.
Like, okay, he's on some stuff.
Yeah, all right.
Right. He's already on some stuff. If you watch the whole video, the way he's talking, he's on something, right?
Okay.
And so to not think about that and know that, especially knowing where you're at and who you're dealing with, and not to offer care at some point in there, you're like, man, this guy's. I wonder how much since you don't know how coked up he is, or you have to think about, did we just? And I talk to so many officers who are like, look, when we arrest somebody, we flip them over.
Yeah.
When they're on their stomach like that, we flip them over onto their back because we know that's not a easy position to breathe in.
Okay.
So we know those things. So negligence is easy.
I sent you this link to a story recently. I don't remember the details of it, but there's a drug dealing lady that just recently got convicted of second degree murder under the felony charge for dealing drugs to multiple people who died from overdoses. And I didn't know about this charge at the time.
Yeah.
I saw that and thought, man, that's horrible. Now, I don't think drug dealing is good. I don't think using drugs is good. I don't think ODing is good.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a fan of any of that.
Right.
But in terms of justice, it should a drug dealer who sells drugs to somebody who then ODs on them, who dies, then be guilty of murder. Apparently in Minnesota law.
You can't.
Third degree.
That's the felony clause again. Because the felony is you're selling drugs. That's a felony charge.
Yeah.
And then somebody died while you were committing a felony.
That's unjust.
That's how they link it. And I'm saying that's not just.
No, not at all. And here's the deal. Let's say that I agree in every way with the verdict. No matter what, we still don't get justice, even if I agree with their verdict. Because what's restitution look like now?
Right.
What does judgment actually look like now? And actually, none of the laws in Minnesota to me are just as far as it relates to murder. Because even if you get first degree, you're just going to jail for life.
You don't get the death penalty?
There's no death penalty there.
Oh, yeah, they don't have justice
So
in
then,
Minnesota.
so we have a problem. This is the same way that you were just talking about. So if you get second degree, you get 40 years as a max. And Chauvin won't get 40 years because he doesn't have a record. At the max is like 12 and a half or something like that. Minimum.
Yeah.
That's just for second degree.
Or maximum, I think.
They can add up third degree and manslaughter on top of that.
Right.
Yeah, they can make consecutive.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
But my whole point is that's not justice either.
Right.
Right.
Going to jail is not justice.
No, because so now,
absolutely
if
not.
you agree with everything that's happened, so George Floyd's family and his daughter are going to be paying for him to be in jail that whole time.
Yeah, that's right.
That's not justice.
And that's why, in a weird sort of way, when AOC says this is not justice, it's like, well, you're right. Now, we disagree completely on what justice is.
Right.
But she's right.
That's not justice.
It's not justice.
The problem is the people right now Christians who are looking at this, they are going to replace the system with the same thing. This is why the conversation on God's law and God's standard and theonomy need to be forefront right here.
This is why us reading the ox goring in Exodus 21, isn't it a gift to have God's word?
That's right.
Isn't it a gift to say this is light, this is justice? Right. Now, I'm happy to have a broader conversation with people who say, I think sometimes the Old Testament law has been applied badly. Or you're not taking into account Christ. You're not taking into account the new covenant. Okay, let's take it all into account.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a foundation, then you are no better than AOC.
Well, and here's the deal.
That's exactly right.
Because all you're going to be working off of is your feelings.
Yep.
And your feelings are never going to be enough.
I'm going to say this as clear as I can. Give me something better than this.
Yeah.
Right.
Give me something better than this.
And all these people saying no, we need to have natural law.
Yeah.
And not the Bible. Or we use the Bible, but we kind of let natural law help us with the Bible.
You can't get exact justice either.
You're playing with fire. You may have a little bit more a tradition slowing things down, but it's the same thing. Last thing I want to say real quick, I know we got to be done is, hopefully you guys caught the defense's attempt at appealing for a mistrial.
Yeah, I saw
after
that too.
Waters.
Yep. Maxine Waters.
Maxine Waters was, sitting representative.
I want first-degree murder.
Guilty, guilty, guilty.
And if we don't get it, we need to escalate things in the streets.
So, the point is that, like, that's jury tampering.
Yeah.
Is the question. Like, back to the original question, how objective could these jury members be? How open could they be when there's threats of violence on the streets?
They're putting pig's blood on and people who are testifying. Like that's
yeah. Yeah.
Guys, you know who used to do that? The KKK.
Yeah. No,
Exactly.
That's who used to do that.
This is, but he appealed for a mistrial. The judge says no, but in the process of saying no, says, but you got a point.
Yep.
You got a point, and maybe on appeal that will, you might get some points there. And the defense attorney for Chauvin says he's been on record since jump that the jury needed to have been sequestered.
Yep.
They needed to have been completely isolated from media
news and
influence
media and all that
everything.
stuff. Yep.
And the judge, sort of in passing, is like, well, I have been discouraging them from watching the news, telling them not to watch the news. And the defense attorney's like, it's apparently, I don't know what television shows he was referring to, but in his appeal, he says there are actually television shows running right now with references to George Floyd.
You can't turn on the TV without seeing
everywhere.
something.
And it's a little bit odd to me that the judge is sort of like, yeah, you got a point. I'm not going to grant it.
Forget the show's commercials.
But maybe on appeal, you got something, which is really strange to me because that means that the judge is on record for basically saying this trial is kind of iffy.
Right.
Like this jury may not be the best, may not be pure, which is kind of weird because you would think that the prosecution would be all over that,
objecting like mad,
because they want this locked up. I mean, they want this not to be appealable.
Yep.
But the judges basically said, yeah, you probably got good grounds for an appeal, which makes me think that there's a whole bunch of virtue signaling going on in this.
Well,
It may not be about what he ends up with. What they needed was a guilty verdict.
This time around, just give us a guilty verdict.
What they wanted was a visceral release.
Yep.
Yeah.
What they wanted was to say, we have to have guilt, we have to have guilt, we have to have guilty verdict, and then they got it.
Well,
and the attempt is sort of this emotional satisfaction.
Uh-huh.
It's not about justice. It's about this emotional satisfaction. Now, people who are a little more thoughtful, I don't know if I should say this about AOC, but she I think at some sort of level recognizes that this can't possibly satisfy.
Yeah.
No one. Everybody's saying that though.
But I think there are some people who are sort of like, and maybe a bunch of Christians in particular. We got guilty.
I mean, Ed Stetzer was like, Benjamin Watson. All these evangelicals came out and said, "Thank God this happened."
Right. And
Russell Moore.
We can't get Russell Moore to talk about Canada.
No, and I just want to
talk about justice.
end here. I think there can be a reasonable argument made that he deserves manslaughter.
Yeah.
So I'm there. If I was on the jury, I think
that's kind of.
And I haven't even heard all the evidence. I'd be willing to hear the case for the other charges. I
second degree
I haven't
or whatever.
heard them.
Yeah.
But the problem is that you've got all this mob going on.
Exactly.
Who's thinking clearly about facts?
The jury was chosen from Minneapolis.
Yeah.
They should have moved the trial. If you want a fair jury, you should have probably moved it out of Minneapolis. Well, who wasn't affected by the riots?
I don't know the precedent on it, but part of the reason why juries are usually chosen from local jurisdictions is because for both sides, though.
Yep.
I mean, does Chauvin have any kind of representation there?
I was going to say, I wouldn't. You have to be careful about that.
I don't know the precedent for moving jury trials, but nevertheless, if you have God's word, the thing is there's so much we don't know. There's so much we can't know. And God wants us to trust Him with what the information He gives us, and then what we're supposed to do is plug it in, plug it into His Word.
But if you don't know this Word
and do our best with it, that's the best you have. And ultimately, you have to trust God to do what's right.
Look, you can't have a murder trial without God's Word. You can't have a just murder trial without God's principles.
No.
This isn't over. There's a lot more to think about. I'm still working through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm going to stand on this over anything else at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If you're single, get married. If you're married, have kids. If you have kids, go baptize them. Until Sunday, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. We needed another 2 hours on this, honestly.
Easy.
We really did.
Easy.
Let's get a lawyer on for Sunday.